Good afternoon, my students. I hope blessed Ramadan for all of you. Today I'll explain for you how you can perform term 3 project for grade 12. In the beginning, you have to search for an experiment to obey the law of conservation of matter. So you have two choices: to choose an experiment to obey the law of conservation of mass or the law of conservation of energy. How we will do that? I will show you how we will do that using the links for supporting materials, but in the beginning I will explain for you in a hurry how we can divide our slides. In the beginning, in the first slide, you have to add the title of your experiment, your name and your grade, and the date when you will submit your project. In the second slide, you will mention the goal of your experiment. In the third one, you should write your research question. You are performing this experiment to answer what? Then in slide 4, you have to write your hypothesis. If you are going to perform the experiment, what do you think is going to be the result of your experiment? Then in slide 5, you have to mention the materials needed for your experiment. In slide 6, procedure and details for your experiment. And in slide 7, you have different choices, and it's the important part in your project. You have different sites as supporting materials. For example, I will search for the law of conservation of matter in general. So I have different choices. I can perform in gizmos. As you can see here, I have different reactants, and I can perform my experiments. So I can do an experiment between hydrogen peroxide and potassium iodide. Then I can perform the experiment. I can measure the temperature. I can find out a change in the mass, so I'm trying to obey the law of conservation of mass. Or I can use this thermometer to measure if there is any change in the heat before and after the reaction. I can check the equation of the reaction from here. Or I can use fit simulation. I will start using reactants, and I can find out the products with different ways. I can use molecules and find out what about the product as law of conservation of matter. So you have different ways to express about your experiment. Or even you can start a game like here. From this site, you can start a game for conservation of matter and show us what you can do. Okay, it's like a virtual lab, and it's an excellent game. You can hear also the voice explaining the steps that you have to follow.
Are you ready? Let's go.
During your game. Or even you can use CK12 simulation to perform your experiment. I think these whole sites can help you to perform your project. After finalizing the supporting materials, you have to record your results after doing the simulation. Then you have to explain your results. And in slide 10, this is in case if you are going to use experiment 2 for the law of conservation of energy. But it's fine till here if you are going to use one experiment. And that's it. Then you will use the other slides to integrate your project with biology and physics and English at the end. You can follow the steps for the other subjects to finalize, and the rubrics to finalize your project, and make sure to meet the deadline for each step. Thank you, guys.